What's up, guys? It's Infamous, and today we're back with an updated tier list. I know you guys have been waiting patiently, and I appreciate that. I apologize. I had a lot of software and technical issues with audio and whatnot, but we are back better than ever, guys, with this tier list review. Today's tier list is taking into account TDM and elimination. We are going to come out later with a tier list review for air superiority. We're doing them separate this time around. Last time we took them into account together. This time we're separating them. Each plane is going to be looked at as though it is level 8 with its level 8 ability. And the way we're laying it out today is going to take a while. So, guys, I recommend you get a drink and some snacks. I'm not going to try to be long, but I will warn you this may be a longer video than usual because we are going to touch on each plane. We're going to give a little description of why I believe the plane is where it's at in today's game and talk a little bit about the meta as we go. So without further ado, guys, let's get into it. So let's start off with D. We're going to work our way up to S. And in D, we have the F-111. Now, the F-111 in today's game is an interceptor, but it's probably the worst of the interceptors as far as interceptors go. With the recent buffs that just came down in the December patch, hence why we're making this updated tier list, we've seen a lot of planes get way, way better. And really, there are just better options than the F-111. It really only sports 6 missiles in total, which for an interceptor is not, it's the least amount of missiles that you find on an interceptor now that it's tied with the MiG-31. But as far as just a plane that can be versatile, it's not. It's not versatile. It doesn't have a gun. It has only rapid fuel reload, and the acceleration is abysmal at 98 feet per second. All in all, it's just not a very good plane in today's game. There are better options like every other interceptor pretty much. So with that, it ends up in D for me. I just don't care for it. I don't care to play it. That's just the way I feel about it in today's game. Moving on to C. In C, we have the F-15, the F-18, and the F-18F. Now, you guys are probably going to want to stone me in the comments section. I understand a lot of people really love the F-15, the F-18, and even the F-18F. However, as far as TDM and elimination are concerned, which is what we are concerned about in this tier list, they don't perform well. And in fact, I would dare say they're very mediocre. They can only fire one missile at a time, barring the F-18F, which has Fox 3s and Fox 2s. Um, the manual missiles, the F-15 and the F-18, they don't have any, they don't really have anything special going for them. They're not special in any way. Where the F-4, for example, got that missile buff where it can have 4 in the air at the same time, similar to the ADV. The F-15 and the F-18 got no similar buffs. So, yeah, like they're just behind the pack, and they have that lackluster American gun that takes forever and a day to kill anything with any amount of bullet resistance. So yeah, I just for me, these planes all sit at C. The F-15 gets flare reload, the F-18 gets rapid fuel reload, and the F-18F gets gun cooling. And in B, we have the F-4, the F-35, the Su-30, the Su-33, the MiG-31, the MiG-21, and the F-5. Now, a lot of people are going to be surprised to see that the F-4 beat out the F-15. But for TDM and elimination, it does actually. They have the same gun. They literally have the same loadout as far as manuals and IR counts. However, the F4 can launch 4 at a time. Their power to weights aren't that much different. They are different, and the F-15 does have a better power to weight, but the F4 has stress turning, which allows the plane to even turn tighter, which can get missile locks and gun shots off, where the F-15 can't. We're not taking mods into account now. So yeah, that's a big boon for the F4 in this situation. Yes, you lose health to use the stress turning, but it is in TDM elimination, it can pull off some things that the F-15 just can't right now, and that ability to launch multiple missiles in a short span of time at the same target is valuable, very valuable. And so for that, it does beat out the F-15 in TDM and elimination, but ever so slightly, and the other ones as well, just for faster lockup times and again more health. F-35, this plane is stealth. It is decent from time to time. It does have a high armor penetration gun, but it is short range. It does have a spin up time on it. Short though it may be, the plane is relatively agile, but it has like no hit points. It has limited gun ammo. There's just a lot of things about this plane with the long missile lockup time. It just makes this plane feel mediocre in a lot of aspects, and hence why it's in B. For me, it gets rapid fuel reload. It's nothing. It does not make this plane feel exceptional in the TDM and elimination bracket. Again, you have to make this plane work. It can work, but you have to make it work. And in today's TDM elimination setup, you gotta have the luck of the draw when you have a plane that takes a long time to lock up on missiles or a short gun range. Pretty much that's the way it's going to work out, and this plane needs all of that to be able to work. So yeah, F-35, meh, more meh than anything really when it comes to that, hence why it's in B. Su-30, it's a better F-18F, quite literally. Same loadout on missiles. It's got 4 radars, 4 IRs, but a better gun, all the way around better gun. Power to weight, I believe, is the exact same, and it gets flare reload over gun cooling, which I'll take any day. Because, quite frankly, gun cooling on the F-18F is practically useless. So yeah, Su-30 is just better. I would fly it any day over the F-18F, honestly. Su-33, Su-33, 6 manuals, 2 IRs, and the flanker gun. It's a solid plane. It just performs it's just kind of an all-around-ish well performer, but there are other planes higher up that I would rather use than this plane, even with a lot of those manuals. The manuals are okay, but it only fires 1 at a time, and while it does have 6 of them, right? The F-15 in this, I kind of feel play very similarly, but the F-15 has better power to weight. But this plane, I believe, is a slight more maneuverable. So really close with these two, but this has a better gun. So once again, it kind of wins out. MiG-31, oh, it gets rapid fuel reload as well. MiG-31, rapid fuel reload as well, again, but its interceptor has a gun, has long range IRs, so it can combat stealth better than planes with radar missiles like the F-111. It has the ability to get up and down really well with a decent power to weight. And overall, this plane just, I feel, outperforms the F-111 in a lot of regards nowadays. Some people might feel that I'm wrong on that. It's not as maneuverable as the F-111, but when the F-111 just gets super slow because it can't accelerate well, yeah, that's a problem. So at the end of the day, I equate these planes to be similar in some fashions, but the MiG-31, because it has the gun and the long-range IRs, I like it a little bit better. MiG-21 and F-5, I see these planes as extremely similar in play styles. I like the MiG-21 actually a little better than I'm liking the F-5 right now with the buffs that have occurred to it, the missile buffs that have occurred. These missiles are now extremely maneuverable at 45 degrees a second with a 12-degree lock angle. That is very, very comfortable. 0.8 second lockup time on these IRs. That is beautiful versus the 1.3 second on the F5. The F5 gets the barrage ability where the MiG-21 gets an afterburner ability, which gives increased acceleration for the cost of extra fuel usage, but the MiG-21 has the reserve fuel mechanic, which is very, very nice. The F5 has, I believe, a slight better power to weight ratio than the MiG-21. I can be wrong on that, though. I may, in fact, be wrong on that. But either way, these two planes, again, I view them as almost the same, hence why they're both in B together. There are better options for other light fighters later on, hence why these are down here in B. They're not the best of the best right now. They are good, they're not bad, but they're just not the best of the best. Same pretty much with everything in this line, even the F4. It's not bad anymore. That missile update really did a lot for the plane. It's playable now. It's just not like, whoa, great. Same for everything in this line. Let's move on to A. In A, we have the F-14, the F-16, the Su-35, the A-6, the MiG-29, the GR-3, the J-35, the J-20, Su-27, Su-34, Su-22, M2K, and J-10. Now, the F-14 is seen as the quintessential all-around interceptor, made popular, I should say, by Top Gun. If you've seen the movie, if you haven't, shame on you. It's a classic. And the F-14 in Metalstorm is kind of that plane that can go from being an interceptor 1 second to a heavy fighter the next. It's got the loadout to do with the 4 long ranges, 4 IRs, and the multi-lock is useful at low trophy levels, kind of not so useful at the higher trophy levels. Really just depends. It's very situational when multi-lock becomes useful. But the plane is good, and hence why it is an A. It is just very versatile. The F-16 can be an absolute demon in the right hands, but the plane lacks the head-on capabilities of some of the other light fighters in the game, and hence why this plane actually drops into A for TDM elimination. It is very maneuverable, and it can maneuver onto its enemy's tail, but it takes time to do that, and it doesn't always have that opportunity. And attackers, one hit from an interceptor and this thing dies. If you make one wrong move, this thing dies against anything with heavy hitting rockets or missiles. It's a very punishing plane if you make a mistake. And so for that, I can't really put it any higher than A in this category. But for air superiority, you're going to see this plane definitely move up a few tiers. Su-35, this plane is the Cadillac of the flankers. I love it. I love to fly it. It is very comfortable. It's got the flanker gun. It's got 38 degrees turn rate. It is beautiful. Beautiful, I tell you. 6 IRs, 2 radars. It's comfortable. It's comfortable. It loves to fly in tight spaces. It's not overly efficient on energy management, but it is a good plane to fly. And it gets gun cooling. I forgot to mention the F-16 gets flare reload, so I will put that in there. The A6 has radar jamming as its level 8 ability, and this is kind of an attacker that people still fly it, but I feel like this plane has kind of been left behind by a lot of the other attackers that have been introduced by the black market, which seems to be happening quite a bit lately. Black market seems to be leaving a lot of other planes behind. The power creep is real, but the A6 is still good. That radar jamming, the team ability is huge. It really does help everybody. It is one of the few planes that actually has a team-based ability for not just itself, but for the team as a whole, and was for a long time considered overpowered until Black Market came around. So yeah, A6 still good, still an A. MiG-29, the do-it-all medium fighter, like in a lot of ways. I wouldn't call it the best medium fighter by any means, but it is. It just can do a lot of things. It can wear many hats, if you will. It can play air superiority well. It can do TDM elimination well, and it really just depends upon the pilot that's sitting in it. You know what I mean? Whether you know how to play those modes well or not. Because this plane can do basically what you ask it to do. It can turn pretty well. It's got a good gun. It's got a fair missile loadout, 2 manuals, 4 IRs. And with the IR buffs that have come down recently, these things, they're pretty good. It's just a solid overall plane. It's got reserve fuel, and it has rapid fuel reload as its level 8 ability. I mean, it's all around just a solid performer. What can you say? The GR3. This is an A, and some of you probably will disagree with this being an A, but the nerfs, in my opinion, found these rockets on this plane. This plane's rockets now, I feel they miss more than they hit. They fire so slow. I feel like they are just impossible to hit with almost now. Like, I feel like planes fly between the rockets now. For me, this plane is just infuriating to fly with the rockets as they are right now. Um, where what was overpowered about the plane before was really its ability that was overpowered. I don't really think the rockets were super OP. They were kind of strong and they could have nerfed them a little bit. I think they kind of took it a little too far. Nerfed the count, but the usefulness of the rockets, not a fan, right? They just basically made it to where this plane has like horrifyingly bad rockets, and the IRs on this plane, I don't think they really ever worked right from the beginning, or at least how they intended them to work. So yeah, at least in my opinion. But anyway, GR3 is an A for that very reason. The brace for impact ability is good still, and they didn't touch that. So there's that. I say this plane's better for air superiority now than it is for TDM elimination, but that's just my opinion. Take it for what it is. J35, I view this very similarly to the MiG-29. It's just kind of a do-it-all medium fighter at this point. It has the pair fire ability, which if you shoot a manual missile, you can send a Fox 2 with it while it is in guidance to the target, essentially firing 2 missiles at once. And I believe I'm not incorrect on this. I believe it got the ability to fire both of its manual missiles at the same time as well, or not at the same time, but fire one and then lock up and fire another one at the same time. So you could have up to 3 in the air, I think now. I could be off on that though. Don't quote me, but I think it can do that now. Same thing with the F-106, but we'll get to that in a little bit. So yeah, these planes got big buffs in that way. But the J-35, it's never been a bad plane. It's just a lot of people, it's because the Delta Wing, people are kind of thrown off by it, I guess. But this plane still plays well. I have it on my alt account, and it does fine. It does fine for me. So yeah, it's an A. J-20, big buffs came for this plane in the form of 360-degree radar missiles. What I mean by that, the look and shoot came to the J-20. It got 6 radar missiles, not 4 like it had previously. It has 6 now, plus 2 IRs, and they have look and shoot radar missiles on this plane. That made this plane very, very strong. In the interceptor plane, the high injure play style of the interceptors, the J-20 just became kind of the king of that play style, if you will. With the stealth that it has, even with the firing penalties and all, the J-20 is still the king of the high and dry at this point in the game because of that look and fire mechanic with the long range capabilities and whatnot. It gets flare reload, which is huge. You put faster flares on this thing, and that lock ability, and this plane basically can stay aloft and fire all its missiles, and you're not really touching it. And again, I know we're not taking mods into account, but what I am saying is that should you get this up to like level 16 and you put faster flares on this, I mean you're basically just not getting touched. Su-27. This is a solid flanker as well for TDM elimination with the health regen ability at level 8. This thing is an absolute solid flanker. It has a decent power to weight, 4 manuals, 4 IRs. It just feels good. It's a good brawling style flanker. It can take head-ons fairly well. It has got quite a bit of health, the same health actually as the F-15, but it has a better gun. And that ability alone just makes it so much more worthwhile to play. And I've said this oftentimes, I would rather play the Su-27 and TDM elimination than I would the F-15 almost any day of the week, even though they have the exact same loadout on missiles. It's just the fact that this plane has a much, much better gun, and it it's I think 1 degree per second more maneuverable. I think it's 35 degrees a second maneuverability versus 34 degrees on the F-15. I could be off on that, but I think I'm correct. But you wouldn't think that that's that big of a deal, but it really, really is. Even though the F-15 has a higher power to weight and can actually hold in on that 34 degrees, where this one only gets 35 degrees for a short time, it really makes a difference. So yeah, Su-27, solid, solid. Su-34, basically Su-27, give it rocket pods and more HP, and you have the same thing. It has HP regen as its level 8 ability, and it is just a solid attacker. Again, it's nothing to write home about in the sense of like, oh, it's the best attacker in the game or anything like that. It's not. It's kind of like the A6 in that regard. It does well, it works, but it's not incredible. It does a good job though. Su-22. This thing has rear-facing gun pods, or as the community likes to call it, butt guns, for its level 8 ability, which are quite potent. Should you aim them well and get them on target, they can kill light fighters and medium fighters with ease. The only thing I will say about this plane, and this is just from my playing it recently here, or quite a bit in fact, I've got a lot of missions for it lately, and this plane gets slow real easy. Like, you cannot go up and down with this plane at all. You have to keep it fairly horizontal. I don't know. For me, I don't like this plane a whole lot myself, even with the gun pods, and I do have the ability, and I have gotten a lot of gun kills with it from the behind, but it's just, I feel very mid in this plane. I don't really like it a whole lot. That being said, though, I know the community likes it fairly well. It is fairly strong. It has 4 IRs and then rocket pods with decent medium arm penetration guns. So yeah, it's a decent attacker. Um, but again, not my personal favorite if I'm talking about attackers, right? Let's move on to the M2K. This plane, a lot of people probably would have figured this to be higher on the list, at least AS, right? The reason why it's down in A, 3 main reasons. Number one, that gun overheat time is an absolute game killer. Uh, you will find yourself overheating your gun a lot. If you had just been playing like the Mirage 3 and then you go play the Mirage 2K, you're going to find yourself overheating your gun all the time. Number two, thing bleeds speed in corners so bad that if you're trying to evade or if you're trying to get away from somebody and you make just a couple turns, you're going to find yourself having to have boosted the entire time to keep up airspeed. And now to try to extend, get away, or gain any kind of meaningful position on somebody else, you're out of boost and you're out of luck. And you're just like, but why? That's the M2K for bleeding speed. And last but not least, if you did not get this during the black market event, you are set stock with only 2 flares. That is horrible. That is horrible. It needs to be 3 minimum. Minimum. Unless they buffed it and I'm not aware of this, you only get 2. You only get 2. That's unacceptable. You have to have faster flares to make that 3. And again, we're not taking mods into account, but what I'm saying is that 2 flares with no chaff ability is unacceptable. And this plane does get a chaff ability. And had you got this during the black market event like I did, you would have got the chaff ability. And then it's okay if you have 2 flares because you chaff a lot of the missiles off because most people are throwing radar missiles at you at distance anyway. And you know when they're radar because they throw them at distance versus up close. But still though, that's an issue. And so for that reason, I just can't seem to put this plane any higher, even though the guns are good when they do hit. They hit tremendously hard, and the missiles are great. You can have a bunch of them in the air at the same time. 2 technically in the air at the same time, although people ripple fire them. Once one missile passes, you can fire another, and so you can have seemingly more missiles in the air than 2, but it's supposedly 2. Um, so yeah, it's a good plane. It's a good plane. It's just there are things that hold it back, make it balanced in my opinion, and hence why I can only really put it in A. Next, we move on to the J10. The J10, this plane's a sleeper in my opinion in a couple ways, but this plane's IR missiles are insane. That's what saves this plane. It loses speed similar to the M2K, though not nearly as bad in my opinion. The acceleration is good on this plane to a degree. It can hold speed, it can turn, and it doesn't bleed speed like the M2K does as bad, but it does still bleed speed. It does have problems getting slow if you make too many kind of vertical loops. The gun is lackluster, where the M2K's gun is great and has a short overheat time. This gun has a bit longer overheat time, but the gun is crud. Simple as that. So you're not killing anybody fast with it, just expect it. The plane does feature a good ability, and that is the Phantom Missile ability, where if you aim at a target, you press your special ability, you can make them think that a missile has been fired from your aircraft. When there was no missile fired, you can bait their flares out, and then you can shoot a real missile and hit them with the missile. That's very, very, very useful. Put that in conjunction with an F-14, and you've got quite the combo. All right, moving on to the AS category. And what do we have? We have the FGR-4, the F-100, the Viggen, the A-10, the MiG-23, the Raptor, the F-106, and the Mirage 3. Now, starting off with the FGR-4 Typhoon. Typhoon is a community favorite. It is a good player favorite. Long been regarded as one of the best planes in the game for being medium fighter. It has a higher penetration gun that can reach out and touch people, although being lackluster in general. But the gun still does do damage. It still does hit relatively hard. I say that it's not the best. There are better guns, right, for medium targets, like medium and light armor targets. But when you come up against a heavy armor target, this gun does fare quite well and does do good. It has 2 long range radar missiles and then 4 IRs, and it just handles well. It's a joy to fly this plane. So yeah, and it has rapid refuel as a level 8 ability. You're going to enjoy it too if you fly it, I promise. Definitely consider getting this plane. It does have those S level moments. F100, definitely a slept on plane in my opinion. This plane, people don't appreciate it, I feel, as much as they really should. The rocket pods in a medium fighter is an absolute genius plan nowadays when you think about all the attackers that are in the meta and how many times you just need to jump scare them with rocket pods and something that's actually maneuverable. Not that attackers aren't maneuverable, but who wants to fly an attacker all the time? Don't be one of those, right? Fly your other planes, learn them. The F-100 is definitely a good alternative to that, and it still provides you the firepower necessary to take out an attacker with ease. So yeah, definitely the F100. Gun cooling as the special ability. It's just a solid little plane. Next up, we have the Viggen, and the Viggen has the long-range sniper cannon with high armor penetration that we know and love. They did nerf it a little bit ago, but even post-nerf, the plane is still useful. It's just not as good as it was as far as the gun is concerned. As far as this flight model goes, it still flies well. It has rapid fuel reload. It still gets around. Good for all modes. I don't really find a mode that this plane can't perform in. With two manuals, four IRs, it just gets it done. And you'll notice like a lot of these planes in the AS and the S tier are good at attack plane busting. And that's because the meta is heavily leaning towards attack planes right now, if not an attack plane based meta. Any plane that's going to do well at busting up attackers is going to be top on my list for TDM and elimination because anything that can take them out uh, is necessary nowadays. A10, solid attacker, slow, yes. However, gun is absolutely devastating. High iron penetration, blistering DPS output with that high iron penetration. And then you have two IR missiles and then rocket pods on top of that with the HP regen. This plane can stay in the fight for a long period of time. It is tanky. It is tough. It is just the A10. What's not to love? May 23, I've been playing this plane quite a bit recently. In some recent masters, I've been doing very well with it. The gun is devastating. The missiles are fast locking. The flare burst ability sometimes can be very overpowered. I just feel like this plane has a lot going for it, and people need to respect it. AS, I feel like is a well-earned category for this plane. Uh, F-22 Raptor. What's holding this plane back is the gun. That's it. If it had a better gun, it'd be yes, but it doesn't have a better gun. It has that American gun that takes too long to kill things, and unfortunately, that's holding it back from achieving top billing here. When it comes to maneuverability, this plane's got it, though I feel like the Felon's a little bit better. Um, However, this plane still is very maneuverable. Good power to weight, fair loadout with four radars, two IRs, and the rapid flare reload. It's just a good plane. Performs. F106. I got one word for you: nuke. The nuke is what makes this plane great. If you watch the Creators Cup at all, you saw this plane absolutely put up a show. It came out, and people brought it out because they realized all they needed to do was catch a couple people off guard, fire the nuke, and boom, because players were sticking together, they were covering each other, and when they're that close in proximity, that nuke is going to deal devastation to teams. And that's exactly what happened. So the F-106 definitely is getting an AS spot, not for really any other reason. It got maneuverability buffs, it got some missile buffs, some range buffs on the missiles. The fact that it can have two in the air at the same time now, but that nuke and the fact that they put the elimination game mode in makes this plane now seemingly smack dab in the middle of the meta, along with those other buffs, right? And lastly, we come to the Mirage 3 for the AS category, and the Mirage 3 is here for no other purpose than its rocket booster and its consistency. The Mirage 3 has very consistent guns, fast locking missiles, and a rocket booster. When you combine firepower on the guns and missile side with decent maneuverability, and you've got some airspeed to go with it, you've got something that's sitting right in the middle of the meta in terms of your light fighters, and this plane has that. The guns hit really, really hard. They're good Mirage guns. The missiles lock fast. That rocket booster can get you out of low speed situations and get you moving if you have it. It's just solid. It's just solid. It's a solid performer. The plane does perform. A lot of people like the Mirage. So yeah, AS for sure, in my opinion. And now we finally get to S, and I think nobody's going to be surprised by what we find here. But let's see what we got. And yeah, you probably figured. You probably figured. Uh, the ADV, the Su-25, Su-57, MiG-19, the F-1, and the A-4. The ADV, Tornado. Oh my gosh, this plane. Not an attacker. So woohoo, right? We can all wave a little flag. But man, this thing went into the game in a completely broken state. And I thought like when I saw it on paper, I was like, this is so obviously broken. Like when I saw the stats on paper, I didn't have to play it. I knew it was broken. Like I just had to see the stats. When I saw that it had decoys for a level 8 ability, when I saw that you could have 4 missiles in the air at the same time, that the missiles had pretty decent maneuverability, that you had 4 IRs beyond that, that you had a decent pool of hit points, 4 flares, and 38 degrees per second maneuverability, not to mention that you had precision cannons on top of that that had a long overheat time compared to the Mirage 2000. I was like, what is this plane? I'm sorry, what is this plane missing? Like, what? Like, how much utility are you giving this Starform? I'm sorry. Like, what? So yeah, Tornado broken. Never should have gone into the game the way it is. Eventually, this plane's gonna have to get nerfed. It's a matter of time because it's just so much utility in one plane. It's completely busted. Su-25 got nerfed in quotations there, and still OP. In fact, I don't really feel like they nerfed it as much as they just kind of like, okay, we'll do some trade-offs here and we'll see how this kind of works. The nerfs weren't really nerfs. It still has its fire all ability, which is you can just point your IRs in the general direction, vicinity of a plane, and shoot them into blank space. And if the plane, even if it's around cover, the missiles will automatically target the nearest plane and go to that plane without you having to lock it up. It's the dumbest ability you've ever seen. And then on top of that, it's got a crazy cannon, crazy great sniping missile still. The sniping missiles are still super accurate. I hit with them all the stinking time. Uh, there are people that are missing with them, but I'm a PC player. I hit with mine. It is what it is. Still overpowered in my book. One of the most overpowered planes in the game, easily. And next we have the Su-57 Felon. Once again, I'll say, like I said in the last tier list, this is probably of the S tier planes, probably the most, I'll say probably the most balanced on this list currently. This plane is just a good, solid performer. There is nothing what I would call outright overpowered about the plane. It just has a lot of things in conjunction, right? It's got maneuverability, it's got a good gun, it has decent missile systems. Combine that with mods later on, and you're just going to have an overall well-performing plane with good maneuverability. Yeah, I mean, it's just going to perform well, and it does perform well, and you see players really, really take to it, and they bring it right up to level 20 as fast as they can because it's just a solid performer in the high level gameplays. So yeah, I prefer Su-57 Felon over the Raptor in terms of TDM and elimination. When it comes to air superiority, I think these roles are slightly reversed, but once again, that's just preference, you know. Next, we have the MiG-19. Oh, by the way, this gets gun cooling. Su-57 Felon gets gun cooling as its level 8 ability. MiG-19, this has gun cooling as well, which it needs, but this thing got buffed to the moon. To the moon. This thing is now, I don't know, I struggle to say that if it's the most overpowered light fighter in the game right now, but if it's not, boy, is it bordering on it. Um, I like I don't I'm really struggling to think of another light fighter really that's keeping up. Maybe the F1 still. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe this is the most overpowered. Let me know in the comment section if you think it's the most OP light fighter in the game at this point. I'm thinking it is. Man, the MiG-19 with six beam riding missiles. You can't flare them. These things are faster now. People are actually hitting with them pretty consistently. The guns punch like crazy. The maneuverability is just as good as the F1, if not a little better. Man, I mean, this plane has gone from zero to hero. Yeah, MiG-19 is just super good now. Long story short, get it. Even if you're on mobile, get it. On PC, this thing's stupid, but on mobile, I'm sure it's still pretty dang good. I know mobile players are doing good with it. F1, still a great plane. They say they nerfed it. I don't believe them. I grabbed it out like right after they said they nerfed it, took it out, and was still absolutely slaughtering people with this plane, like left, right, and center. Had no issues with it. I was just like, I thought they said they nerfed it, you know. And everybody else I talked to pretty much said, yeah, we haven't noticed a nerf on this plane at all. Some people mentioned some things about, oh, the guns feel a little sluggish. I'm like, didn't even notice that. I was still hitting every shot. Like, so yeah, F1 still with the escape artist ability at level 8, solid performer, great light fighter. It's not quite as maneuverable as the F-16, but man, when you got that much weight of fire in the front of your plane and just outright maneuverability with escape artist ability that makes you, I would say, just nigh unto impervious to bullets as you fly away from a situation under afterburner, man. I mean, this plane just, yeah, it's solid, solid. And then the A4, which they buffed again to the moon, out of obscurity and into the spotlight, dead center of the meta. This plane was was a gunship to the hilt, and then all of a sudden got rockets and an acceleration buff, got a gun reworked a little bit, and then this thing just boom, like everybody's playing it now. It is fast. It has rockets that hit. The A10 rockets, to be exact, it literally has the same rockets as the A10, just has 16 of them instead of the 24 that the A10 gets. And I mean, it's nimble. It's not overly turny, but it can hold that speed though. It can hold the speed in the turn and keep up its degrees per second, which is huge when you think about it. So yeah, the A4 is just a dominant little beast of an attacker right now. And basically, it's what you get if you crossed an F100 with an A10 and you get the A4 at the end of it. And it's like, man, I mean, how is that not going to be in the middle of the meta? You know what I'm saying? So exactly. And one plane you don't see on the list here, but I will put it in as a bonus is the Su-47. And honestly, guys, I have not played the Su-47. I've talked with a lot of people who have though, and on pretty good authority, I would put this plane somewhere between A and B. I might give it like a B plus. The flanker style gun, yeah, it's good. The missiles, they take a while to actually start tracking. They have a quick relock time. Yeah, that's great. But if you get hit with a missile while you're turning, you apparently spin out. That's not great. The backflip ability, kind of useful. Yeah, all in all, it seems like it's got some good things going for it, but it really relies on you not getting hit and getting hit at the right times if you are going to get hit, which, at higher levels of gameplay, I can see this becoming a problem for a lot of people. So, yeah, long story short, Su-47 probably going to be, I would consider like a B plus, not really A quite yet. You might could put it the backside of A and maybe say like an A minus to a B plus, somewhere along that line. So anyway, guys, I hope that you guys have enjoyed this tier list. I hope it was explanatory and that you guys enjoyed it. If you think I made a mistake, if you think that I didn't put something down quite right, or if I got some planes mixed up or put in the wrong spot, let me know in the comment section below. And as always, guys, until next time, clear skies.